Good day, fellow Bannerlords. Today I present you with 21 things you wish you knew when starting the game. As always, do hit the subscribe button if you are enjoying this game and would like more videos like this. Melee mounted units are excellent at closing the distance and disrupting the enemy. Charging through enemy range units will cause havoc, and it's a good way of reducing their numbers. I've instructed my mounted units to follow me as I charge into the enemy's backline. After killing several crossbowmen, I then push into the enemy's front line from behind. The enemy troops at the front are now compromised as they become easy targets for my archers if they attempt to engage my mounted units. Sometimes you may have to deal with the enemy mounted units first if they have a large force. Pay attention to what the enemy troops are doing. If the enemy is pushing to your position, you can set up a shield wall with your infantry units. This formation is advantageous in dealing with incoming projectiles. You can use archers to eliminate enemy troops from a distance. Loose formation works great in situations like this as you reduce the likelihood of getting obstructed by other units. If available, you can send your mounted range and melee units to the flank as the enemy troops get closer. I like to use this tactic if the enemy is using a shield wall as they push in. Leveling up low-level units can be difficult once your army becomes large. I found the easiest way to do this is to assign these units to a different formation. In this clip, I have transferred those units to Formation 5. Doing so will allow me to instruct them separately from the rest of the infantry units. I can send them out for battle alone when dealing with looters for experience to level up. You can command your archers to hold fire to ensure Formation 5 gets the most experience. When dealing with more difficult enemies, I can command them to hide behind infantry units that carry a shield for some protection. Athletics is one of the best skills to invest in as it gives you a massive advantage in fights where you're on your feet. Such situations would include bandit hideout missions, tournaments, and siege battles. You can also get knocked off your mount during a fight. Being able to outmaneuver your enemies can help you deal with outnumbered fights with ease. Do note that you can further increase your movement speed by shielding your weapon. In this clip, you will notice that I was consistently repositioning myself such that I only had to deal with one enemy unit at a time. The best way I found to power level this skill early in the game is to travel the map on your feet. Notice that I only have 1 XP here. By simply travelling to a nearby settlement, I've obtained 92 XP. Tournaments are a great way of obtaining gold and decent gear early in the game. Making sudden changes in your movement direction can trick the enemy into missing the attack. You can also change the direction of your attack by pretending to strike from one direction before changing it to another. Facing the opposite side when striking with a weapon from the sides will lead to quicker strikes. It has to do with the distance required to swing your weapon before coming in contact with the enemy. When engaging the enemy in team fights, try to target enemies from their back or deliberately position them so that your teammates can freely strike them from behind. If you have a shield equipped, you can use it to protect your teammates from incoming projectiles. It also offers excellent protection when you need to close the distance with enemy archers to finish them off. If you're having difficulties, try to position yourself to encourage all other participants to engage each other first. You can use terrain to achieve this in some arenas. Athletics will come in handy in most other scenarios. While mounted, you can reach the maximum speed quicker or do a hard brake by double tapping the up and down action keys. The default buttons for this are the W and S keys. Being able to change your speed quickly can help you avoid or land attacks while mounted. In this clip, I had set up an ambush and am currently leading my cavalry unit through the enemy's party from the flank. The enemy calls for a retreat shortly after. As I attempt to slay the fleeing troops, I find myself moving a little too fast. Applying a hard brake allows me to change my direction to better track my targets quickly. There will be times where you might ride into an object by accident, putting you to a stop. Being stationary makes you an easy target for archers. Accelerate quickly to avoid incoming projectiles. Throwing weapons can feel weak early in the game. I found it especially deadly against mounted units once the skill level is reasonably high. You may only have 3 to 4 throwing weapons per weapon slot when you start the game. As such, leveling your throwing skills is relatively slow. The best way to level this skill is to use all remaining throwing weapons on enemies fleeing at the end of each battle. You may also want to dedicate more weapon slots to throwing weapons. I use 3 weapon slots for this. You can take a similar approach with a bow or crossbow if that's what you prefer. It is also worth noting that there are some quests with weapon and armor restrictions. You can weaken your targets with throwing knives, as the knives can be concealed within your civilian outfit. Do note that you can deal more damage with your melee weapon. Go in for the kill when you see an opportunity. Throwing weapons along with other projectiles that have missed the target can be picked up and reused. Hold the Alt key if you have difficulties finding the items. You can reuse throwing axes even after killing the enemies with them. I recommend bringing it along for bandit camp raids if you plan to use throwing over archery. My favorite approach to raiding bandit camps is with 2 to 3 melee troops with shields and lots of archers. Slowly move your troops in position and assign your choice of formation. Once ready, command your troops to fire at will. The default button for this command is F4. Do play cautiously to have enough hit points to deal with the bandit boss at the end of the mission. Use your melee troops to pull aggro by standing ahead of your party. It would be best to assign shield wall formation to them to block all projectiles when in combat. Equip a ranged weapon to assist from safety. Commanding your melee units to charge is a great way to locate the last few enemy units during bandit camp raids. You can do so by pressing F1 followed by F3. You can then instruct your archers to follow you as you push with your melee units. Override the command with shield wall if you are facing multiple range units. Charging in to strike the head of bandit bosses can end the fight cleanly and quickly. There is a small window of opportunity at the beginning of the battle as the bandit boss draws his weapon. One thing to note is you need to ensure you have your weapon of choice equipped right before the encounter. When sieging, siege weapons can be moved to reserves and set up later on. I have found that it is much more effective to have all 4 siege weapons active simultaneously. To do this, start by building all siege weapons you intend to use. Please pay close attention to the progress and move it to the reserves upon completion. Now repeat this step for all remaining siege weapons. Right before the final siege weapon is completed, pause the game and set all siege weapons to be active at the same time. Be sure to look out for incoming armies at all times. Using buttons 1 to 3 will toggle the speed at which time passes. Press 1 if you spot an incoming threat to decide what to do next. It is a lot easier to assault a settlement or castle if you manage to destroy the walls. When involved in a siege, look for objects, walls, or openings to make it hard for enemy range units to hit you. Stay on the move to make yourself a more challenging target. The enemy archers will eventually get you if you stay in the open for too long. You can make a massive difference in the outcome of the battle just by staying alive. Siege battles can last a long time with possibly thousands of enemy units to kill. You will run out of arrows or bolts at some point. Look out for arrow barrels as you can get a refill whenever you need them. Deadly stones can be used against invaders during siege battles. You can locate this on the second floor right above the main gate. It works well against enemies attacking the main entrance and can also be used from the castle walls. You can also use it to destroy part of your castle walls if you're getting obstructed. Learn how to use siege weapons. You can inflict massive casualties onto the opponent, not to mention the impact made by being able to destroy ramps and siege towers. Some siege weapons can be operated by several units concurrently, each fulfilling a different role. I recommend taking cover while the siege weapon is being loaded and taking control once it is almost ready to be used. It can be challenging to keep your settlement defended at the start of the game. Take note of the number of soldiers in the garrison. Disbanding your active parties will send the soldiers to the nearest garrison. You can do this if you are expecting an incoming siege. The soldiers will take some time to reach the garrison. If you need more soldiers, you can recreate each party with fewer units. You can disband the parties after the commanders have recruited enough units from nearby villages and settlements. The best way to get gold is through smithing. You can use multiple heroes to assist with smelting and refinements, which can help power level your smithing skills for the dedicated smith by providing all the necessary resources. When smelting, I like sorting out the items by yield. I then decide which items to smelt based on the resources I think I need. Do keep track of the amount of charcoal you have remaining, as you need it for your smithing activities. You can obtain charcoal by refining hardwood. Using heroes with the perk Efficient Charcoal Maker will provide you with more charcoal for the amount of hardwood needed to create it. You can find this perk at the beginning of the smithing skills tree. I have found that crafting two-handed swords that are extra long sells for the highest price. Choosing the highest tier parts or equipments that require more resources to make may not reap the highest profits. Refer to the weapon reach attribute as you're browsing. Once you're satisfied with your selection, max out the size of all parts. You may need to do some trial and error to determine which tier of blades to use based on what you have unlocked. It is helpful to make some weapons that sell for cheaper, as the merchants may not always have enough money to pay for the weapons that you sell. It is also worth noting that smithing provides experience to your heroes, which can help level them up. I have found this useful for leveling up your younger siblings and children as they start with low stats. Getting married and having children will increase the number of heroes under your command. These heroes do not count towards your companion cap. A good way to decide your potential mate is to find out the skills that he or she has. If all is good, carry on to profess your admiration. After doing so, you will need to get into another conversation with that noble. You will now have to respond to a series of questions. If you look towards the right, you will notice the percentage chance of success for each response. You need to provide 3 favorable responses to proceed to the next step. If you are deemed compatible, leave and strike a conversation with the person again a day later. You will need to provide 2 additional responses that are favorable. Failing to do so will prevent you from taking the relationship any further. Of course, you can reload the game before having these conversations to try again. If you are found worthy, you will need to meet the head of the family and negotiate financial arrangements. The whereabouts can be found in the Heroes section of the encyclopedia. This is the easy part. Simply travel close to the last seen location for that person and refer to the encyclopedia to find the updated location. Once you have found the person, have a conversation with that person and make your offer. Clicking auto offer works fine. You now have a new hero available for use. Refer to your clan panel to find out where to find your new hero. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe and let me know if you have any questions in the comments below.